10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 78. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. My name is Nick Manella. Very excited to be bringing you part 3 of the Bebop Basics series that we're doing here. I really hope you're getting something out of these episodes. I've been practicing a lot of this material, and I got to tell you, it's really helping every single thing that I do. So we're moving on to the next thing today. Just a reminder, if you want to get the PDFs for these episodes, you have to head over to our Patreon page. It only costs you $3 a month, and you get all the PDFs to every episode and plenty more over there. We just uploaded a couple of courses you get as a gift for signing up our brand new ebook. So go over and check it out. It's patreon.com/10-minute jazz lesson, or you can go to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, and click on one of the many Patreon links that will bring you right over there. Our goal is to get to $100 a month by the end of October. You will be listening to this episode at the beginning of November, so hopefully we've reached that goal. And if not, please show your support and keep the podcast going. All right, let's jump into today. So for the past 2 weeks, let's do a quick little recap. The first episode of our Bebop Basics went over chromatic approaches to thirds and went over some of our basic scales. Last week, we covered some chordal shapes, so playing diatonic triads and diatonic seventh chords and adding chromatic approaches to those. And this week, we're going to go out of chromatic approach land and we're going to enter pivot land. So if you've never heard of this before, again, this is another Barry Harris topic that we're going to cover. Just a reminder, these are all the basics that we're covering before we get into the actual material that's going to help you over tunes and your actual playing. But this is all the stuff that we need to cover first to make sure you have a base of knowledge before you jump into that stuff. So this material is not going to be directly applied to tunes right away, but it is very, very important, and you should definitely be studying this stuff. So just keep that in mind as we go through. And also a reminder that everything I'm presenting to you in these Bebop Basics episodes is in the key of C. So you've got to go and you got to put it in all 12 keys just to make sure that your knowledge is rounded out and you're not going to come across any chord changes that you can't play over because you haven't covered that in your practice time. All right, with all that being said, let's jump into the exercises for today. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start pivoting on outlining the chord. So we're going to take a C major 7 chord, C, E, G, B. We're going to play it in order first, but then we're going to pivot by jumping an octave. So we're going to play the C in the middle register, then we're going to jump down and play the E, G, and B in the lower register. Then we're going to do the same thing with our D minor arpeggio. So we're doing this diatonically through the chords again, covering every single diatonic 7th chord in the key of C major. So we play right up the D minor 7 arpeggio. Then we start on D, jump down to F, and do our pivot. So why is this stuff important? Well, it's important because we don't want to be predictable in our soloing. By pivoting, by jumping an octave, our listener is never really going to know where we're going to go. And it's going to add a really interesting element to our lines if we can suddenly jump octaves and create a more angular solo that moves around the instrument a little bit more than just heading up or down. That can become boring really, really quickly, just going straight up the instrument or straight down the instrument. If we start to incorporate some of these twists and turns into our lines, all of a sudden they become much more interesting and we keep our listener guessing a little bit. So let me demonstrate this first exercise for you. I've only written out the first 2 of the diatonic 7th chords. So again, it will be your job to go through the rest of them and figure out how to pivot on these chords. Here's what exercise number 1 sounds like. So you can hear I'm continuing that all the way up throughout all of the diatonic seventh chords. That'll be something. And then I would put it in every key as well, either around the circle of fourths or chromatically or whatever I'm feeling that day. So the second exercise is going to be the same concept but on a scale. So now I'm going to do is start on the seventh of the C major 7 scale, come all the way down. Then I'm going to start on the seventh, but displace the sixth by an octave. So play the seventh, jump up to the sixth, and come down the rest of the scale. Then I'm going to play 7, 6, then jump up an octave and play 5, come down the rest of the scale. So I'm just adding, I'm putting a pivot point on every note of the scale. Again, this is to develop flexibility, to be able to do anything I want with the scale without any kind of restrictions on myself. I really like these scale exercises. I like practicing these a lot better than the chord ones because they just make more sense to me. And I think they actually have a more practical application than the chord ones. Now, that being said, the chord ones are still very, very important. So don't neglect those. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that when I'm actually using these, I find them a lot more useful on the scale. And if you were to look at, like, let's say the Charlie Parker Omnibook, you would see this all over the place. Somebody like Charlie Parker, Sonny Stitt, or Dizzy Gillespie, or any of the bebop masters, Clifford Brown, they really employ this kind of tactic a lot in their solos. And when you look at and study and listen to their solos, it's very clear that they have complete mastery over these pivot points. So this is exercise number 2, pivoting on the major scale. So you can hear how melodic that is, much more melodic than doing it on the chord. So like I said, I find this a little bit more useful. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do that same exact exercise, but we're going to use a dominant scale, a mixolydian scale. Because again, the major and the mixolydian are the two most important scales in bebop. Those are the things that we're going to see most often. And then in episodes that are coming up, we're going to talk about why the dominant chord is so, so important. And in fact, we're going to start leaving out the minor chord on 2-5-1s or things of that nature. And I'm going to explain to you why we do this and why Barry Harris says that we should do this. So this is the exact same exercise, except we're doing it on the mixolydian scale, which is going to give it a much different sound and is going to be really important for you to get under your fingers, both the major and the dominant. So check out how exercise number 3 sounds. Sounds pretty cool, right? I mean, so it's different than the major, obviously, and practicing them back to back is kind of a cool thing to do. So you could work your way through all 12 keys by doing all 3 exercises in each key, then moving on to the next key. It's really important to think of some different ways to do this and switch things up, and always keep yourself guessing, because that's going to be an important part of developing that flexibility that we all want as improvisers, and really the flexibility that we all need as improvisers. So again, these are some of my favorite exercises to practice, really getting them kind of up there on the metronome and sounding really good, no hesitation, no second guessing, can really make you feel great as a player. And it's a great way to do scale work that has some direct applications to actually playing over stuff. I notice after I work on this and then I go play a gig or go to a jam session or whatever, I just feel much more free on the horn. And I think that that's kind of the goal. While I might not be using these in direct application to my solos, it just opens up my technique and makes me hear different things, which is always a benefit. It's kind of those fringe benefits of practicing this stuff. All right, so get out there and start working on this stuff. I know I've presented a lot of information over the past 3 weeks. We've got one more episode of these basics coming up, and then we're going to move into some other topics for the next couple of weeks. But make sure that you're really working on this stuff. And again, if you want the PDF, head over to patreon.com/10-minute jazz lesson. Please support your creators. It's the only way that we can actually sustainably keep giving you this free content. And $3 a month is not very much to ask for all the benefits you're getting. All right, guys, we will see you next week with another Motivation Monday and part 4 of our Bebop basics. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and we will talk to you soon. Have a good one.